top 5 Baylor spring game observations. Let's jump right into it. Number 5, there's a lot of speed. I don't know where that translates, though, at some of those positions. Cam Bonner, I came up really impressed with how fast he is. He made a great catch and a great run, but they have a lot of speed. They have a lot of speed at defensive back. They have a lot of speed at wide receiver. They have speed at running back. But where that translates in experience, because a lot of people have a lot of speed. Do you have a lot of fast guys who can also play football well? That's where it's going to come in, and because they have so much inexperience, it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of harness all this stuff.
It was a time last year, and I wasn't sure if it was Dan Campbell or Matt Campbell or somebody that mentioned when they played Baylor that maybe the fastest team that I've ever, gone against. And I'm not saying that they're at, but no, I mean, speed kills. I'd rather have it than not, right? You just got to now be able to make sure it's going in the right direction and knows where it's supposed to go, right? I did see a lot of that, no question.
Yeah, they got some good athletes. They got some good speed. I mean, I don't think that was a focus of Matt Rule and company, and I don't think that that's changed at all with Dave Aranda. I mean, you got to be fast, and to do what they want to do, you got to be fast. So, there's a lot of that. There's not a lot of experience, and maybe in some cases size, but there is a lot of speed.
Yeah. Number 4, running back depth, to me, very solid. I like what they have, health permitting. I mean, Squirrel, Williams, and all that, but I like what I see from Tay McWilliams. I think Jordan Jenkins has a lot to build on, and I'm very curious to see what they can do with Josh Fleeks if they can get creative with him, because we've seen him in the open field when he's made some plays in the past. It's just that it's
how many plays has he actually made?
Yeah, exactly.
Like 3.
Yeah.
It's one of those names, and God bless, I hope it works out for him. I thought he'd eventually go up to Tech because of Cedar Hill and all that. Didn't. I love the fact they're trying to find ways for him, but he's got to make it happen. Yeah. We've heard a lot about Josh, and boy, if he can step up and just gain a little traction, that makes that room even better.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of put him in that category of like Squirrel. And before that, Jared Atkinson, of just guys that you hear about year after year after year, but you don't ever really even see them. But, yeah, I mean, I think it remains to be seen. I mean, they've got depth numbers-wise. I do think that Tay McWilliams looks to be pretty good, but it's so hard to tell, like, when they're playing each other. I don't think we'll really know for sure until they line up in game number 1 and play somebody who doesn't know what's coming already. But, yeah, I mean, there were signs of progress back there, but, I mean, there's not an Abram Smith back there right now.
No, absolutely.
So, that's still being worked out. But Craig Williams gives them a totally different look, Fleeks to an extent as well. I think they've got the bodies, but just need to see them actually go up against a real defense.
Yeah. Number 3, quarterback and wide receiver need a little work. I don't think this should surprise anybody. This we talked about before the spring game. It looks that way to me after the spring game. The defensive backs and the wide receivers are very much the biggest work in progress on this roster. And
how many defensive backs are going to possibly get drafted, right? You got Woods, 2, and Petrie. Correct? Yeah.
No,
Barnes.
Barnes.
And Petrie, if you count him as 3.
So 3. You lose 3 guys to the NFL draft. You're not going to. And although they've reloaded with Walcott and they like a couple others they have, but
I mean Walcott, really came on at the end of last year. But is Mark Milton a series in, series out starting corner, 1 of 2 in the Big 12? I don't know that. We've only seen him in spot duty and coming in on. Certain plays and whatnot. So, I'm a little curious about corners. I mean, they got some young guys there, and wide receiver, young guys that looked good on Saturday. But again, when you're going up against like senior and junior corners who have been on campus for 4 years, I mean, can you get room? Can you get off the jam? I mean, that remains to be seen.
Yeah. Number 2, the offensive line and defensive lines are the strongest positions on the team, and that's a good thing because every team that's run a conference and national title in the last, ever, this is maybe the best part of their team. And go back into if you go back into your team's best seasons, whatever your team is, their best season is when these 2 positions were their best.
If, in fact, there's another position group that ends up being better than those 2, then they're going to be pretty good.
That's great news because they're really good on the offensive line and they're really deep on the defensive line. Behind the defensive line, they've got some spots to fill. Obviously, I think linebacker is going to be okay. I think with White and Jackson and Williams and Jones and all that. I mean, Dylan Doyle is a really good player. I think they're fine there. I think they've got enough players to really to be good. Now, is it Terrell Bernard? No, but who's different and what's it different? I think they're fine there. I think the defensive line's really deep. I think the offensive line's clearly really deep, and that's good news because whatever you put in behind them is going to be better just because the guys up front are doing their jobs.
Yeah, I can't recall too many instances on Saturday of when they would have blown a play dead because of a sack, but in the last half hour of watching Texas's spring game, because they've got all the spring games up, I've seen like 5 sacks that would have been in a regular season game, so I know that remains a concern for them, and I'm just thankful that for once for Baylor, the offensive line isn't the massive question mark entering the offseason, because it was for like 5 years in a row up until this year. So, yeah, that's finally stabilized and appears to be as strong as you would expect it to be. The D-line clearly needs to grow up, though. I mean, I think that was obvious in listening to Dave Aranda on Saturday is, not all of them necessarily, but there are elements of that D-line that need to grow up and need to become leaders and need to set the right example. And I'm sure those who he was talking to heard that message loud and clear, but he was very obvious and not dogging on them or trashing them, but just letting it be known like there's some growing up to do in that D-line room.
He even said he was like, they're different. Some of these guys are different in the personality than him.
Yes. Well, he also mentioned that some of them need to take care of some business off the field, which you would think that's academics and also being where they need to be. And that's a big deal. And he said that more than once, that it's not just what they are as football players. To become leaders, they have to also do things elsewhere as well. Yeah.
And number one, and we talked about this earlier in the show, said they're good at quarterback either way to me, but they're not great at quarterback. Neither of these guys is a difference maker all the way up and down.
Neither one's going to win the Davey O'Brien or be in the Heisman running or things like that.
Yeah, but that's the case for
everybody.
The guy who was the first-team quarterback in the Big 12 last year, in Spencer Sanders. He's good, really good. He's not great. He's not life-changing, but if you can make enough plays and be supported enough by the people around you, then you can win. But this is, where it's going to be interesting in the Big 12 this year of, can you take that next step if the quarterbacks are kind of just who they are?
Well, Spencer Sanders is an interesting example because he can certainly win you some games, and he will outright lose you games too. Throw you into losses. We've seen him do that, many times now in his career, it feels like. They don't have a superstar at the position. I don't think you necessarily have to have a superstar, but I do think you have to have somebody that's pretty damn good. I think they got a couple of guys that look to be pretty good, and there's still some room to grow. There's still a few months to go, so we'll see. But I'm very curious to hear what this announcement is whenever they do make it, however they make it, of who the starting quarterback will be, and then, obviously what the fallout, if there is any from that, becomes. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be the one calling it because, some people have only watched Saturday's game and they're like, oh, Chapin, clearly. And then all throughout practices, it was Bohannon's clearly the guy. So I don't know which direction they go, but I think they'll be, satisfied and confident in whoever it is. But I just feel like whoever it is not going to be a Heisman Trophy contender.
That's 2 springs in a row, though, in my opinion, that Chapin was the best quarterback out there. Because I thought last year, and granted, he was playing with the 2s all last year, but to me, he looked like he had the best game in the spring. But again, does that mean he's the starter? Not necessarily, because what can he bring you all the way around?
I know he was pretty good. I don't remember him being like the best, but he popped last year. Congratulations to Baylor men's tennis winning the Big